Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at Pac-14. They're all big, but we've got one of my favorite smart people in the house, Dave Ryan from the Salisbury Wycomico Economic Development Incorporated. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Greg. Good to be here, as always.
So everyone,
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
You were overdue to be here.
You couldn't find anyone else, so you asked for a sub.
Well, we get a little short. You know, it's not hard to reject me. It seems to happen a lot. But just recently, you were at the Big Chamber Forum, and you gave a great presentation on what's going on in Wycomico County. And I wanted other people to hear what you had to say as we're coming out of the pandemic.
Okay.
What's going to happen next?
Well, right now we're seeing that pent-up demand. You know, it was funny prior to the pandemic, or just at the onset of it, we were wondering, how do we stimulate demand on the other side? And it's not so much demand, it turns out, as much as it is supply. So restaurants getting a number of, getting 100% capacity, being able to utilize all those tables, getting people back to work. Supply chains, getting product into stores and into manufacturing plants. It's really a supply issue rather than a demand. So there's a lot of pent-up demand in the marketplace. Consumer spending seems to be driving a lot of the recovery right now. And if you think about it, since the pandemic began, we had a couple rounds of tax refunds. We have a couple rounds of stimulus checks, forced savings throughout the past year because you couldn't spend a lot of money. And some people have fared absolutely horribly in this pandemic, and others have done fairly well. It was very discriminatory, right? It impacted everyone evenly. So we're seeing a lot of consumer spending as vaccinations take hold, as supply chains are corrected. We see strong business demand lagging that consumer demand. So it looks like the next year or so, 2 years, looks to be very strong.
I have been impressed just from a consumer aspect at how resilient the economy has been. So when things first started and there were shortages of different food things, we were shifting from a restaurant supply to a grocery store supply.
Sure.
We worked through that pretty fast. You know, you couldn't get a mask, you couldn't get hand sanitizer for a long time. Now there's too much of it. You know, there's plenty of it. And also the consumer taste have changed. People were very responsive in terms of not going places that they shouldn't go. You know, they stayed in and they did what they were supposed to do. That had the effect on the economy, but at the same time, we still kept growing in ways that I would not have imagined.
I think so, and it impacted heavily our community, especially small businesses, and look no further than here in our team in economic development, as we were asked to deploy a lot of capital to small businesses in the past year. At the same time, the economy here is fairly well diversified. So that's been one of our greatest assets for 100 years, and it continues to be a great asset to our economy. So if you look at that diversity, it makes us more resilient, and the more diverse we can be, the more resilient we'll be, regardless of the disruption that happens that comes our way. So, but a very challenging year, and we're not done yet. And a lot of those small businesses out there are still trying to recover from those lost sales and revenue and profitability from last year. But given that diversity, given the prognosis for the vaccinations, looks like smooth sailing ahead, and some strong economic growth. A lot of that is pent-up demand. A lot of that is lack of supply.
Now, you won't take any credit for this, but I have to shine some light on you. Now, in your job, you have kind of a low-key kind of thing in terms of what you do with the community. You work with businesses to try to get people to locate here. You try to retain the ones that we have. Retention is a big part of what you do in terms of developing the local economy. But when the grants started flowing out and government was given this money, they didn't know how to disperse it. They didn't really have someone on their staff to do it. They threw it at Dave Ryan and your staff at SWED, and you were the guy that handed out the money.
We did, and not unlike throughout Maryland, most economic development offices were kind of, and I don't quite know why, were labeled the quarterback for grant programs, and we were no different in Wycomico. It was a tough time, Greg. The PPP program was just out with the SBA. The EIDL program was out with the SBA. unemployment insurance. People couldn't get money from the unemployment insurance. And then the government came to us and said, hey, we want you to administer $9 million in CARES funds to the small business community. And so we sort of started with that blank slate. And okay, now what do we do?
Right.
You know, we have $9 million just all of a sudden just showed up. Our budget's about $250,000 a year, and now it's $9,250,000. And so we quickly developed a couple of programs. We had three tenets we really wanted to abide by at that time. One is we wanted to make the process user-friendly. Given the complexities of PPP and EIDL and unemployment insurance and others, we wanted to make it as user-friendly as we could for our small business community. Two, the need was great and the need was now. So we had to get the money out. We had to do it fast. And three, it was a sizable amount of money, $9 million. So we had to be accountable for that. So user-friendly, get it out fast, and be accountable. Those were the three tenets that we modeled our programs after. And I think, just judging by the business community, I think we did a pretty decent job. To date, we've done about $13.3 million to about 1,200 small businesses in Wicomico County. There's about 2,000 businesses in Wicomico County that employ less than 20 employees. So those were the ones, especially in that hospitality sector, service sector, retail sector, those were the ones that were hit the hardest and in some ways, the ones that could least afford major disruptions, where manufacturers were considered essential at the time, and they kept going. So we were able to deploy that money quickly. We're still doing it. We just finished 3 other grant programs, and I think we've done 8 or 9 different types of funds. A new fund coming out for nonprofits. We're waiting for a grant agreement with the Department of Housing and Community Development.
Good. I was wondering about nonprofits.
So we're doing nonprofits next. As soon as we get the rules of the game. I don't mind playing a game if I know the rules, and we need to see that grant agreement, and we'll structure a program the same way we've done in the past, and we'll get that money out to nonprofits that are in great need throughout the economy.
Yeah, there were vats of cash for small businesses. Some for restaurants was a separate program. You did what? Hotels and motels was a separate one.
We did. The first thing we did was the state of Maryland came out with a program. And in 2 days, they ran out of money, and we had about 100 businesses in Wicomico County that applied for those state funds and did everything right, and through no fault of their own, just couldn't qualify because there wasn't enough capacity. So the first program we came out with backfilled those requests. So we called Dave Ryan and my staff, and Natalia and Zach, and that's about it. Called each one of those 100 businesses and said, we're going to do this program, we're going to backfill that. And then we opened it up for the broader community, any business, and then restaurants, hotels, a little bit of an online sales vehicle, and nonprofits are next. And we've done different phases in each one of those. So it was a long summer. It was 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and even the weekends, and everyone had our cell phones, and that consumer response or that customer focus, I think, played out well. And but the businesses needed help, and they needed answers, and they wanted surety and certainty, and I hope that we gave them that.
Yeah, even it touched me personally in my business, at least. My photographer, who's a stringer, who has his own photography business, I pay him. He does other clients. He was able to get a small grant and bought like a laptop and upgraded some of his camera equipment, and it's made my product better just because of that opportunity that he had. Yeah. And you would not have thought that was someone who might benefit from this situation, but it's been a great thing.
No, it's been a super thing, and I'm from Salisbury, born and raised in Salisbury. Moved away for a while, and then came back. And you think you know your county until you go through a pandemic, and then you start dispersing money to small businesses. And the resiliency out there, Greg, is remarkable. The kindness that people showed us, introducing us to their business, inviting us into their businesses and homes, some cases. Some were more tech savvy than others, and they would come in the office and we would help them apply. Some were hard copy only, and all of these things. And to a person, they would say, okay, Dave, we appreciate it so much. What can we do for you? And I said, well, it's not about me. I tell you what you can do for me. Go out and find another business that needs help. And they would. We had one lady walk up and down the shopping center and just handing out flyers and say, look, I've had a great experience with this program. You should apply. If you need the help, apply for this program. One gentleman out in Parsonsburg, same thing. I said, you can go find me a business. And he did. Went across town, went to a friend of his who wasn't aware of the program, sat there, helped him fill out the form, called me for some guidance, and we got that through. So we had neighbors helping neighbors, competitors helping competitors. I mean, we've had 100 competitors out there with one another, and they say, you might want to give Greg a call. He could use some help. And it just, the longer we kept the program going, the more we permeated and strengthened the program and reached all sectors of the economy. So on our website, we mapped it out. So every dot represents a grant given to small business throughout Wycomico County. And at the end of the day, up in the Sharptown area, there wasn't too many dots. And I said, wait a minute. We're not reaching every corner of Wycomico. We're not closing this fund. We'll have to go beg for more money from somewhere until we reach somebody and some business in Sharptown, so in the Mardella area. So we did that, and it was a meaningful experience of someone for longevity and economic development. One of the most meaningful experiences I've had in my career, and I think throughout SWED's history as well, which is over 50 years now.
Well, we had Bill Chambers in here from the Chamber, and the Chamber can be a little prickly. They're a little bit demanding. But Bill called you the superstar of the pandemic. I don't know if you want that on your gravestone or not, but
I'd rather not.
That's a great moniker to have, superstar of the pandemic. And John Pasoda, our acting county executive, said, we don't know what we would have done without Dave Ryan. And I think a lot of the credit goes that you know these businesses, you know these people, because you're networked in. And when they needed money, you were able to go, that makes sense or that doesn't make sense. And you were also able to turn the money around so fast. That's what they were amazed about, that the applications would come in and you knew whether to give them the money or not.
Well, the harder we worked on, the prior to the application period, the better the process on the other side. So I appreciate that. It's not about Dave. Businesses needed help. They needed it quickly, and we were able to do that. We have a pretty strong team at SWED. Our board of directors, our membership base. We're not the noisiest. We're not the ones waving the flags all the time. But behind the scenes, with one phone call, we can gather a group of really smart people to help formulate those ideas and formulate that vision on how we can disperse these funds. So we did that within our own team internally in our board. We reached out to our partners in government and the city of Salisbury and Fruitland and Wycomico County, business organizations like the Chamber and my friend Mike over at Greater Salisbury. And then we had several Zoom conferences with small businesses. Who better to reach out to, how are you doing? How are you doing? What do you see? And that allowed us to design meaningful programs, not requesting the firstborn and yet still being accountable on how we disperse those funds. So again, we wanted to make it user-friendly, fast, and accountable. And I think we did it. We're still doing it, so I hesitate a little bit.
Right,
because
it's not over.
It's not over yet, so we're still going. But the future looks good. The vaccinations seem to take a hold. Consumer confidence seems to be returning. Business confidence seems to be returning, and it might change the way we go forward, right? But it's been a meaningful experience for us. We were honored to do it, and happy to do it at this time.
Economics was always my favorite subject in college. I loved my econ classes, and I finally got to a point where I couldn't handle the math aspect as you got higher up, so I wasn't able to keep going in that. So I have a macro fascination, but the things that are going on in the labor market right now just fascinate me. So you've got people on one side saying, the unemployment benefits are too nice, that's why no one's going to work. On the other side, it's like, no, these people don't want to go back to the jobs that are not very fulfilling. The people have had a time to examine their careers and maybe they want to do something else. In the meantime, you've got the small businesses who desperately need employees. There's a huge problem out there. And to get these people back, they're going to have to pay more money. We've always said on the lower shore that one of our big problems is the low pay rates, that we can't attract people here because the pay is so low. Is this an opportunity for us?
I think it's an opportunity. You know, the talent acquisition and talent retention has always been an issue for us and others throughout our country. You know, and part of that is the changing. If you want to go macroeconomics, then part of that is the changing nature of economies. Okay, back in 1900. 60% of the working age population either worked on a farm or worked in a factory. In 1950, about 36% working age people either worked on a farm or worked in a factory. And today it's less than 10% that work in a farm or work in a factory. So those jobs that we saw 30, 40, 50 years ago are no longer, and wishing harder for those jobs to come back is probably not really helpful. So as the economy changes, the world became smaller, technological innovation has become greater, and jobs are a little more complex. So it's that talent that we're trying to attract, and education is that foundation. I think going forward, education is the foundation that can help propel us to different levels. But it is, challenging to find those people to staff operations. I think it will get better as the unemployment. I mean, let's face it. The federal government was offering $600 on top of the average Maryland unemployment rate check was about $300. So now it's down to $3 and $3, and when that drops and I wish no one ill will. We want everyone to do well. Then maybe that loosens up a little bit. I hope so. But going forward, education has to be that component to drive our economy, and then creating that environment where people want to live. So school systems, the ability to get a job close to your home, affordability of home, which is a real estate is a really growing area right now, especially residential, something we haven't seen in a while. So all of those quality of life factors, I think, are probably more important today than they were when we were coming up in 30, 40 years ago.
We're buying everything on Amazon.
Yeah.
So that retail thing has really changed. And as Salisbury, which was the retail hub for the whole peninsula for so long, it's going to change things.
It's going to change things. Talk about opportunity. Let's look at them with the glass half full. So the Center of Salisbury recently changed hands. It's a New York investment group that purchased it. There's some large space there, and I think from a retail perspective, it was trending in that direction, right? What you're describing.
Right.
The pandemic probably accelerated that direction and that pace a little bit. But take a look at the Center of Salisbury. There's some large box space on the end. That space, Macy's is about, and Sears, they're 120, 140,000 square feet. So significant size space that could be repurposed into something else. It's probably not going to be clothing stores. It's probably going to be some other destination. Could be medical, could be logistics or warehousing operations, things like that. So we toured it a month or so ago, met with purchasers in the past 6 to 9 months or so. Trying to get a handle on that type of space and what could be a good fit to bring in more commerce, more jobs to the community. So, but yes, that and office. We're not a big office environment here in Salisbury, but you can bet as companies bring people back to work, that hybrid approach or the offering of more remote work will probably be more prevalent than it used to be, and we're better at it. We're set up. We've got cameras. We've got backgrounds. We're dressing like that. We've got the lighting, and the broadband access, and we're just better at Zooming today than we were a year ago, and we've had a lot of practice. So it's probably not going to replace that, but I think it will add to the office environment that option. So those two sectors, industrial seems to be really hot on the real estate side. As people fix supply chains, and I'm not sure they really want to be dependent upon someone halfway around the world for their raw materials coming in. So we're fielding a lot of inquiries in that nature. And residential construction's really on fire. something we haven't seen in Wycomico County in 15 years,
Right.
prior to the Great Recession, right? So those subdivisions that were subdivided in 2005 and 2006, 2007, and then the recession hit and housing just kind of stopped, those lots that sat dormant for 15 years are now under construction, some on spec, some already sold. So if you're sellers, it's a seller's market clearly, and so lack of inventory and a rate structure is really supporting that housing growth, which is good to see, because you tax people where they live, so that income tax will be here, and you give people an option to live here, but you have to have the housing in order for that to happen.
As the guy who sort of sells the county to groups that might want to come in here and start a business or expand their business, what's your sales pitch? What do you say about Wycomico? What makes us special?
Well, one, we're a regional location, right? So we can draw from a workforce at a labor market throughout the MSA. So it's about 400,000 people, and it's an attractive MSA.
And our MSA includes
MSA
Sussex.
is Metropolitan Statistical
Yeah.
Area. It's 3 Lower Shore counties, Worcester, Wycomico, Somerset, and Sussex County. So number one, we have that labor market, and we're central. It's easy for people to come to work. It's not an hour commute, 2-hour commute, and things like that. But the largest asset is the people and the quality of life that we have. It's always been that way. I believe it always will be, and that's why I say to keep creating that reason for people to be here. Make this environment where people want to live and people want to work. Otherwise, they can work somewhere else, or live somewhere else, and just gladly come into work in this 20 minutes or 50 minutes or 40 minutes, and it's an easy drive and then go back. But then you sort of lose that fabric of community. You know, if they live somewhere else, they go to church somewhere else, they go to PTA somewhere else, kids play ball somewhere else, and that induced spending, that ancillary economic benefit, we lose too. So to keep that quality of life is, if there's ever a community that really can get things done working together, it's been Salisbury and Wycomico County over a long period of time. We live in a more divisive time today than we've had in the history of our country and perhaps in our community, but given the economic sectors that we have and the strength of our economy, the stability, we promote that. So you're still grounded in agriculture. It's a great sector to be in. Healthcare, great sector to be in. Higher ed, great sector to be in. Very stabilizing sectors. And then if you look at our industrial base, you've got life science. These are Cadista Pharmaceuticals, one of the fastest growing generic pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, people don't even know Cadista's
There's
there.
400 some people.
Yeah, it's a huge operation.
And a strong growth potential on its way. Zoetis and Purdue and Trinity and Tishcon and others. And then the microwave product sector, these are K&L and
Which
Smiths
was
Interconnect,
unique to us.
which is unique to us
Yeah.
in the mid-'90s, and now 5G is sort of promoting that for future growth. So that stability, so we promote, and you look on the horizon and say, okay, and look no further than here at SWED, and that's what we're working on, is how can we identify and then exploit new economic sectors that's sustainable in the future. So we're looking at taking the existing assets that we have, like our airport, like our port of Salisbury, the resource-based industries that we have here, and say, okay, how can we identify the future microwave sector or the future life science, both animal and health, and in other sectors. And the more we can do that, the more diversified we are, the more resilient we are, whatever comes our way.
And your experience knowing that we were able to create an industry with microwave technology here, and that we were a place that could manufacture it and supply these people, that was unique. And there, like you said, there's going to be the next unique thing out there, and we're going to be positioned to take advantage of that.
I think we've had a cluster strategy over the years, right? We look no further than our own backyard. So retention and expansion of our existing base is job number one for SWED. It always has been, should be. There's nothing anyone new wants coming in that the existing companies really don't want. So the more we pay attention and close focus to our existing customer base, I think the better the opportunities that we are. We're not that proud. If we can have 100 businesses out there and 100,000 people in Wycomico County promoting Wycomico County, we'd love it. So A lot of those businesses, Greg, were startups over the years. And if you think about it, every company, including one of the largest private sector employers that we have, started 100 years ago with an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship will drive this future economy. And we just have to lay that groundwork and provide that framework so future entrepreneurs can grow. So, yeah, we helped. We didn't create that. Somebody else created that microwave sector. We helped, and we make no apologies for doing that. But it was entrepreneurial driven, and I think entrepreneurship will drive our future economy as well.
I have to ask a personal question.
Sure.
Back in the old days, this was a community where we had the National Indoor Tennis Tournament here, thanks to Bill Reardon. We all grew up in Salisbury playing tennis. We played tennis after school, before school, all weekend, at night. And you were the star local tennis player here for many years. Everyone knew Dave Ryan from tennis. We were Tennis Town USA. I miss that. I want to play tennis again.
Well, give me a call sometime. I mean, it wasn't just Dave
I want
Ryan.
the whole community to be tennis again.
Yeah, well, things go in circles, and we had a strong tennis community. And back in the mid '70s, I think we were Tennis Town USA by Tennis Magazine. We had more tennis courts per capita than any other city in America.
The whole town was covered with tennis courts.
Yeah, but things change and they progress. You look at something like the National Folk Festival right now. Is that engine, that signature product that really brings the community together? So I don't know that we'll get back to the tennis. The prize money just kind of ran out of Salisbury a little bit, but then you have a National Folk Festival, and arguably that brings more people into the fold in terms of community spirit. So it's a great time to be here. I think the future looks better than I've ever seen it. In my 25 years or so at SWED, and even my, I won't tell you how long I've been in Salisbury because I was born in Salisbury, but it looks terrific for our community.
You've got a great website. I would encourage people to go there. You put out a great statistical report, which businesses can use to track where things are. It's a brilliant report. I've been trying to figure out a way to get it in the paper somehow so that everyone can see this. But it's just so well done. So I encourage everyone to go to your website, which is swed.org?
Swed.org, swed.org. Or call us anytime. We think we're approachable. We hope so. We try to be.
He's Dave Ryan. He's the Executive Director of Salisbury-Wicomico Economic Development. Man doing a lot of work in our community right now, and we're thrilled he had time to be with us here today. Thanks so much, Dave.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of One on One right here on Pac-14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support Pac-14 and One on One. We'd encourage every business to support Pac-14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.